I'm Dan, and welcome to part 2 of homemade pastrami. So if you joined us for the first video, what you saw us do is trim a big piece of brisket into its two parts, point and flat. You saw us make a brine for it and stow it away. And it's actually been sitting for about, well, 7 days. I had intended 6, but the 6th day was pretty busy, so I didn't do anything with it. And so today we're going to be preparing the actual smoke and steaming of this pastrami, work of art. So I've got a Webster Smokey Mountain, and so there's a certain method of getting that thing ready for smoking a piece of meat. Here, in fact, is the piece of meat. So here is our cured brisket. It's been sitting in the brine, which includes some cure, spices, various things you can check out in the first video. It's very important to rinse the brisket before you do anything with it. Otherwise, it's just going to be way, way too salty. So it's a fine piece of drippy meat. And dab it off and make it nice and dry. Let it come to room temperature for about 20-30 minutes, something like that. Now, when you light a coal chimney like mine, there's a billion ways to do it. Yes. I happen to like this one, and it's just kind of a neat tool. This is just a butane gas grill. These things get super hot, so there's lots of different ways you can use them, especially if you want to cook something that's really stinky or smoky outside. It's a very easy way to do it. But I also find it's a super cool way to light a charcoal chimney. So you put in your fuel, you close it up. It's nice and rickety, so, fun to use. And you just turn on the flame. And so this, after like 10, 20 seconds, I don't know, maybe a little bit more, it's going to get the bottom super hot really quick. And then you just cut the flame and put it on something safe, that you don't want to destroy, like a grill or something like that, while it heats up the rest of the way. So here, we're going to do another blooming of the spices. This is coriander seed and peppercorns. Again, to let pop and dance. This is going to be for our rub. Now, unlike last time in the first video where we kind of crushed them, we actually want to make them more of a dust a little bit. I mean, just kind of a coarse grind. So I've got this little thing here. It's a Brayville sort of tiny blender. It's got a few different attachments. Today we're going to give it a try turning our seeds into something useful here. Turns out this thing was vastly underpowered. It really just moved them around really quick, and it was quite disappointing. So I had to bring in something that's a little more heavy duty, which is the blender. It is the blender. And actually, maybe I should have started with this. Maybe I should have known, but everything from making breadcrumbs to doing what we're about to do here, the blender is far superior. It just kind of turns them into a tornado, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and indeed it got them right to the right consistency. A couple of spins, looks kind of cool, looks like locusts or something like this. But it was right, it was exactly what we needed, and so there is our beautiful consistency, something like that. And we go back out to check on our charcoal chimney. The Hades Inferno is right where we want it to be. And I'm using the minion method for the Webster Smokey Mountain, which is where you put the charcoal in the bottom of the smoker and you put flaming charcoal on top of that, and it burns slowly and evenly as you go, including your smoke woods. So here's the meat. It has come, I guess, maybe to about room temperature, probably a little cooler than that. Anyone with kids is going to be very accustomed to big handfuls of wet paper towels. So that's me. By the way, I don't choose the nitrile gloves in this household. That's not me. That's the wife. But they work great, pink as they may be. And so before the rub, you want to put a little bit of mustard, which is just going to hold the rub to the meat. It doesn't matter what it is because you'll never taste the mustard. It completely disappears in the process. But it's a really good glue to, really good glue to keep the spices attached to the meat. Front and back, sides. You don't want to miss any spots. Quite nice, quite therapeutic. And now we apply our rub. And just evenly, you've got, sorry I should have mentioned this, but it's a 1/4 cup peppercorn and a 1/4 cup coriander seed, which was enough for a 6-pound brisket like this one. And you just want to get a nice even spread to it. Front and back, Don't forget about the sides. They are easy to miss. And you just kind of go gently across the surface of the beef until it looks about right. Flip them around. Do the same thing on the other side. And now we begin our true minion method. And so there you see these extremely beautiful hot coals going into the middle of the charcoal. And at this point, we're going to bring the smoker up to temperature. And really just comes down to then assembling it. It's in 3 big pieces. I love this smoker. It is super useful for lots of different things. We have our water pan in there, which we will use. You want to fill this up with hot water. And I lined it with aluminum foil just to keep things easier to clean up. But you pour some water in. That helps stabilize the temperature so there's not so many swings as conditions change in the smoker. So that water is pretty important. Another important thing here is inserting the temperature probe because you want to know how hot you are. And when you insert it, you don't want a lot of resistance. You want to feel like it's going in pretty easily. If there's resistance, you've probably hit fat and you won't get an accurate temperature. So you want to try to slide it in between the muscle fibers, and so it shouldn't be too hard to push in. Phrasing. And now we are pretty much ready. We are pretty much ready. We're going to put this meat onto its grate. It's a fantastic grate. In fact, it's a great grate, if I do say so. And you'll notice that the weather today was not really great for a smoke. It was cold, it was rainy, and so as this process went out, it was kind of a stressful time just to see the thing come up and stay up at temperature. And I put a little bit of an umbrella or like a sunshade on top of it just to keep the rain off, which happened to work pretty good. A super tip, if it's a windy day too, that top vent, which would always be open, make sure it's facing not downwind, in other words, away from the wind, and that way you're not getting a cold gust that's going to enter the top of the cavity and keep the temperatures down. So that's a little tip for you. But here we are, it's 50 degrees inside that brisket, and well, it was, and now it's on 58. So skip ahead, the magic of cameras. And so we're going to take this thing off the smoker now. It's pretty good. This was 3 hours. It was 3 hours. You don't need to smoke it the way you would a regular smoked brisket because we have a second stage of cooking here. But you want to get a nice bark on it, some nice color, and essentially set the thing into its so-called final form. Now, I'm pretty proud of this contraption. This is the steamer. Traditionally, you steam a brisket after smoking it to get a pastrami. And so I rigged up essentially a pizza steel on top of 2 gas burners, upon which I put the stainless steel hotel pan, upon which I put 4 cookie cutters at 4 corners of that rack, and then I put the rack on. And so I was surprised at how well this worked. I probably didn't need to make it this complicated. Maybe just the steel pan would have been fine. Maybe something in the oven would have been good too. But essentially, this really worked out well. All we have to do now is make a lid out of aluminum foil. 2 sheets crimped together worked fantastically. Just had to put extra on the ends of that hotel pan because a lot of steam was escaping there. But it turned out to be pretty good, pretty easy. I will say that if you do this, you want to pay attention to where the steam and the condensation are going. You don't want them to drop on the meat, and you don't want them to spill all over your, all over your stove or all over your kitchen. So you just have to watch it. Steam tends to, come out in weird places. Here I am. I got some restaurant hands from experience way back in the past, so this being pretty hot doesn't bother me too much. But sealing it up so the steam stays with the meat. And again, with these weird phenomenon, it's dancing. It's dancing because I guess the bubbles are popping inside, and so it kind of moves back and forth. So this is the second weird phenomenon of this cook. The first one being the weird breathing brine bubbling from the first video. But anyway, here we go. It's been 2 hours. It's pretty intense heat, so the meat comes up to temperature pretty quick. Yeah, restaurant hands, so much for that. It's about 205 degrees in the brisket now. And that's what we would consider done. It's good to hold at that temperature for a period of time just so the collagen and different fats inside really have a chance to render. And what we'll do is we're going to probe it. And if it's nice and easy and tender, we're going to call it done, which in this case it is. That's the thickest part of the meat. Looks like it's, working out just fine. So we'll cut our heat. And the next step for this, since we're not quite done yet, not ready to eat, is we're going to wrap it. Now, if you notice that liquid in the pan there, I didn't lose a lot of steam. I thought it was going to keep refilling this. It was pretty hands-off from a water maintenance perspective, which was really nice because I didn't want to mess with the steamer too much. And basically, it retained a lot of its water really easily. So now you'll see how I wrap Christmas presents. They look pretty much like this. But I'm trying to use some butcher paper as a first layer. And the butcher paper is going to let some of the steam breathe inside. And we won't make that brisket too soggy as it's doing its resting period, which we'll talk more about in just a second. But you want to wrap the brisket so it's nice and tight. And keep the thermometer in because you also want to monitor its drop in temperature as it comes to rest. The second layer is going to be aluminum foil shiny side in. I don't know how much that matters, but that's what I did. And this is going to retain some of the temperature so it comes down relatively slowly to its cutting temperature. When you want to slice this, slicing temperature, maybe we call it that, slicing temperature for this brisket, for this pastrami, is around 160, 150 degrees or thereabouts, and it's going to take maybe an hour or so to get to that temperature. But here we are, nice little bundle. And another layer on top of that, I just improvised. I used a kitchen apron. This is just, once again, to keep it nice and warm and to keep that temperature drop pretty slow. And I put this over into my oven. My oven happens to have a warm method, and it hovers around 180. My experience with this was that it cooled only to 180 degrees, so I actually took it out after a period of time. This did not work out so well. So I took it out, I unwrapped it, and I gave it a chance to rest to 156. And now for the first time, we're going to see something that could be called pastrami. Yay. So we take out temperature at this point. We're going to do some slicing. And let's just see the magic unfold. I started at the thin end rather than the thick end. And you want to make sure that you're cutting across the grain. So if you remember how your brisket had kind of striations of muscle fibers, we're going perpendicular to those. And the knife is about 30 to 45 degrees against the face. That just gives you a nice broad slice. And you can see it's nice and pink. Like, this is not a normal brisket. That's the cure having penetrated completely through the meat. It is pretty juicy, I would say. I don't know if the screw up in the oven made it a little bit more dry, but it's got a little bit of hang to it, as you can see. But definitely like a real nice pink pastrami type color. These are pretty thick slices. I don't really prefer thick because it's kind of a heavy bite, but it was the first time doing it, so whatever. And we slice and we slice and we taste. And guys, it was like legit pastrami. It was salty, it was flavorful, smoky, thumbs up. It was pretty good. I don't know what I could do differently. Again, maybe just cooling it more correctly or whatever. Maybe one day less of the cure, or maybe a little bit less prog powder, because it was ultimately pretty salty on this first taste. That mellowed out in following days, by the way. So I did try it a couple of days after too, and it kind of evened out. So take that for what it's worth. But there you go. Thank you. Pastrami.